Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Green by Design. We are so happy that you could join us this evening. Let me start off by introducing myself and my co-presenter tonight. My name is Heidi Casper. I manage Austin Energy's residential green building team, and I have been working for Austin Energy Green Building since 2010. I'm also a licensed architect and worked as an architect before I joined Austin Energy. My co-presenter tonight is Lee Dorr. She is a utility strategist, also on our residential team, working primarily with our single-family custom homes and on some of our strategic initiatives like embodied carbon. She has her Master of Architecture from the University of Virginia, and prior to joining Austin Energy in 2014, she was the design coordinator for Habitat for Humanity. Tonight's session is going to be focused primarily on design. That's why Lee and I are your presenters tonight. And next week, we will have Pat and Chris covering landscaping and building materials. And then the third night, we will have Con and Michael who will talk about building systems. We do have this session registered with the American Institute of Architects for continuing education. So if we have any architects here with us tonight and you're looking for that continuing education, we have the sessions registered. And if you provided your AIA number, we'll be sending out certificates via email after all of the sessions are completed. These are the learning objectives for the sessions. This is all 3 sessions, and these are the ones that we have submitted to AIA. All right, so before we fully get started into our first session, we wanted to take a couple of polls just so we can get to know a little bit more about you and why you decided to come tonight. So the first poll question will be, what brought you here today? And we'll let that run a minute while you get a chance to answer. Hopefully everyone can see that poll and take a gander at that. Looks great. It looks like a lot of you just came because you wanted to learn more, which is fantastic. Hopefully you are in the right place for that. And then we have a good number of you who are planning to either build or planning to remodel a home. So I did want to make a note for those of you who are planning a remodel. You might wonder tonight, as we're getting into some of the design considerations, how these apply to you. Some of the things in a remodel are going to be really difficult or impossible to change. So as we're going through it, you're going to want to think about what aspects of your existing home's design are working for you and what aspects you may need a different strategy for. Poll question number 2. I think let me share the results. Okay. All right, poll question number 2. We wanted to know, how knowledgeable would you say that you are about green building? All right, we're letting that run. Good. So it looks like most of us are in that a little to somewhat category of knowledge. And we have some of you who are telling us you don't know anything. You're in the right place. The workshops tonight are meant to be accessible, even if you really don't know much about sustainable design. We're going to try and start it right at the beginning. So with that, I am going to turn off my video just to preserve a little bandwidth and dive right into our first presentation. Okay. In this first section, we are going to talk about establishing goals and selecting your team. But before we can do that, we are going to need to start by defining what we mean when we are talking about a green home. So This picture is of a lovely, gorgeous straw bale home that we rated. And this is what some folks think of when they think about a green home. They think maybe it's about a particular palette of materials, straw bale, cobbed, or rammed earth. And materials certainly have a large role to play. Obviously, we have a whole session dedicated just to that topic next week. But materials are not the only thing that we need to think about when we're thinking about green by design. As I said, they have a role to play, but you can build a green home with conventional materials. Other people start to think about green building and associate it with a technology like solar panels. But I think it's most useful to think about green building in terms of desired outcomes. So what do I mean by outcomes? This is how I define it. It's not the color, but even though this is a lovely green colored home that was also rated. A green home is one that's healthy. Let's see if that brings up. Yep, healthy. It is going to be comfortable. It's going to be efficient, both in energy and in materials and water. It is going to be durable. We want our green homes to last. We don't want to have to constantly be replacing parts of our home because those things take energy to make. We want it to be low maintenance. That kind of goes right along hand in hand with durable. And maybe because I'm an architect, I think a green home ought to be beautiful. Home that is beautiful is going to be one that we're going to be inclined to want to keep and maintain. So let's take a poll. I am curious to hear what's most important to you in a green home. Can you think of some other outcomes you would want in your green home? We have that poll up for you. Looks like our top front runners are environmentally friendly and healthy. Fantastic. Yeah, health became a really big issue during the pandemic, but right now looks like environmentally friendly. Yeah, a green home should be one that's accomplished in a way that's easier on our environment. After some of the winter storms that we've had, we might also add in the idea of resilient. How well does your home meet your needs in an extreme weather event? Lee's going to touch a little bit more on that when she talks about designing for our climate. But yes, we want to make sure that our home is done in an environmentally friendly way. All right. And then let's see. So I want to address a question that is often asked. How much does a green home cost? Well, unfortunately, my response is very nebulous. My response is compared to what? Many design decisions that help make a home green, such as the orientation of the home on the lot or the strategic placement of windows, those things don't cost any more than designing them poorly, and they're going to save you money on your future energy bills. Other strategies and technologies will come with an upfront cost, but they might save money in the long term. For instance, adding more insulation is going to cost more, but if it allows you to use a smaller AC system, then you might be saving money on your AC system. So there's some trade-offs. Some strategies might save you money now and in the future, but require a little bit of planning and forethought. So designing shorter plumbing runs, for instance, that can save you money for hot water because you're saving on the energy that's lost when the water runs through that pipe. And it saves you money by reducing the amount of piping needed. But you have to think about it right up front at that design. The most significant factors that affect home cost include generally the complexity of the design and your material selections. The price for green building is going to really depend a lot on your approach and your budget. Layering green features on top of a builder's plan is generally going to cost more than designing in energy efficiency from the get-go. So if you take a conventional home and just add solar panels to it, that can be great, but we're not really taking advantage of any of the cost efficiencies of design that you could. All right, so green homes are better than green features. So technology is changing rapidly, and there's a lot of green products on the market. And we were just talking about solar panels, and you can spend a lot of money purchasing all of those high efficiency gadgets on the market. We have a local architect, Peter Pfeiffer, who likes to refer to these as eco-bling. And these are the fancy things that you can see, your solar panels, maybe a tankless water heater, a heat pump water heater, programmable thermostats. These all have their place in green building, but they're just one piece of the picture. You're going to go a long way using simple materials and good design. Getting the basics right up front is going to allow you to add on the pricier features like those solar panels later. Spending more on the durable materials up front is going to reduce your long-term maintenance cost and may even reduce your insurance costs. And things like, even when we're talking about things like solar panels and particularly something like a heat pump water heater that might have a really high upfront cost, you're going to also want to look at your payback time. Heat pump water heater, for one, is one of the ones that I've looked at that actually pays back quite quickly. So what's your tolerance for how quickly that thing needs to pay back? What's your budget? And where are you going with this? How long are you going to be in this home? As an example of the importance of design, let's go ahead and look at that home here on the left. It has solar hot water heating. I don't know if you can see it, but that's on the very far, kind of in the very far back. There are solar panels on this home. It's a nice, simple design. Those solar panels are all facing south. They're getting lots of sun. That's perfect. But so are all those windows. And while we have a little bit of an overhang, you can see that the sun is not just hitting the solar panels, it's also hitting the windows. So what has this homeowner done? They have closed all those blinds to keep out the glare and the heat. And that means we have windows that aren't providing a view. They're not providing much in the way of light. And now they are just kind of a hole in your insulation that's generating extra heat gain. And so if this is Austin, which I don't believe this is, but if this were Austin and we're getting all that sun on our windows in the summer, we're going to need more electricity to be generated from the solar panels just to counter the heat gain that we're getting through the windows. So if it's up north, maybe that heat gain is desirable, but here in Austin, we want to think about maybe a deeper overhang to better shade the windows. Then we might need fewer solar panels. We save some money. So Catherine Lee is going to talk more about that and shading in depth in the next session. But that just gives you an idea of how these things interact with each other. Green building is not a style. All of the homes in this image, including the apartment building, have earned Austin Energy Green Building ratings. It's not a price point. We have a long history of working with Habitat for Humanity. That's where Lee and I first met, to rate their homes, and all of the affordable housing receiving fee waivers from the city has to earn a rating. So green building, like I said, as we talked about it, it's not a technology, it's a process. It's the process of fully considering the end use of your home and the related consequences of your design decisions. So the goal is to end up with a home that meets your wants and needs and doesn't compromise the needs of future generations. That's that environmentally friendly piece that a lot of you said was so important. Since I mentioned ratings, let me divert for just a moment to talk about Austin Energy's green building ratings. The city of Austin created the nation's first green building program back in 1990, the first rating version in 1991. We actually rated the first homes in 93. We've been evolving that rating system ever since. A rating system provides a metric to evaluate and set priorities. It provides a level of credibility, and it can serve as a tool for communication as to how different practices impact the greenness of a home. Unfortunately, we do see many cases of greenwashing. I have seen ads for homes that will advertise something like energy efficient 14-SEER AC system. Well, that sounds great, but 14-SEER is the current federal minimum efficiency that is allowed to be installed in Texas, and that's actually about to go up. So rating systems are using a third-party standard to evaluate the home. So you don't necessarily, as a home buyer, have to understand what 14-SEER means. You get a little bit of just that third-party vetting that these homes have been vetted by somebody else that says it's green. So it's one of the benefits. Particular rating is broken into a set of basic requirements that all of our homes have to meet, and then a set of categories of measures. And those measures have points that projects can earn, homes can earn. And this is how we kind of try to capture the best practices in residential construction that help us achieve a home that's healthy, comfortable, efficient, etc. So we look at the site, how you're using your site, how are you addressing energy efficiency, water efficiency, what are the materials and resources impacts of your home, the health, we want homes that keep us healthy. And then we have this education piece too. Are you educating yourself as a home owner? Is your builder educated in green building? Because that's going to make for a more successful project. A huge portion of our natural resources are used for our buildings. I haven't updated this, but in 2020, the residential sector accounted for 22% of the total primary energy consumption and about 20% of carbon dioxide emissions in the United States. We use large amounts of water in our homes and on our lawns. There are many common building materials that emit gases, such as formaldehyde, that are hard on our health. But with careful planning, we can make homes that enhance our lives and lessen the impact on our planet. In Austin, that water use per person per day, for instance, has been falling. It was 190 gallons in 2006, and by 2019, it had come down to 120 gallons per person, and I think it may even be slightly lower than that now. So the smarter we get about how we're using our water, the better and more efficient our fixtures are, the less water we use. Similarly, the amount of electricity the average residential household in Austin uses has also fallen. And when we look at Austin Energy Green Building rated homes, we will be able to see that they are performing better than like homes that are not rated. This is kind of a complicated chart. It shows the annual consumption of a sample set of homes in Austin. And by doing this, we found that average use was best predicted by the size and the age of a home. Newer, smaller homes tended to use less electricity. Larger, older homes tended to use more. It's not 100% that way, but that's the best predictors that we have. So if we take a line and predict consumption in kilowatt hours based on the size and vintage of the home, we can kind of have a guess at how your home would do if it was the average. And then if we plot the green building homes there and we just isolate those, we can see that the vast majority of them are performing better than their peers. So what we're doing is working. We do get outliers. Maintenance and lifestyle also matter. Back to that education point I made a little bit ago. If you work from home, which many of us are doing nowadays, your usage is going to be higher than a household that is gone for most of the day. If you have more family members doing more loads of laundry, operating more devices, your household usage is also going to be higher than a smaller family. We had a fun story out at Whisper Valley where one of those home owners was very confused as to why his bills were so high when he had solar panels on his home. Well, it turned out that he was running a Bitcoin factory out of his home, and mining Bitcoin using computers takes a lot of energy. So the way he was using his home was using a lot of energy. That was how he was making his income. So that needs to be factored in and balanced in as to whether that's something he wants to continue doing. But as I said, your lifestyle, the things that you're doing in your home will also impact the energy use of the home. All of that goes back to being educated. Educated homeowners are going to be empowered to make smarter choices in the way they operate and maintain their homes. So you are taking kind of the very first step of doing that and being here tonight. Throughout the rest of the presentations, we're going to be taking you through that process. Like I said, green by design, it's a process, not a technology or a material. All right, so the first step in that process, where do we start? We want to assess your needs and establish your priorities. These are going to be a little bit different for each of us. So planning is the most important and time-consuming part of a quality building. A lot of realtors have worksheets that can help here, though I have found many of them focus more on the what rather than the why, and I think the why is more useful, as oftentimes there may be more than one way of meeting a need. So if you can, try and get to the why. And let me explain a little bit more what I'm talking about. A what might be a walk-in closet. The why for a walk-in closet is probably that you need storage. So again, what is a walk-in closet? Why is storage? You might say you want quartz countertops. Why do you want quartz countertops? Because they're durable and attractive. Some of these things, it might just be because you find it attractive, and that is totally fine. If you are a part of a family, you're going to think about all of the different members of your family and what each of them need and want to live. You might even find you have some conflicting wants and needs. But if you focus on your lifestyle and your values first, you'll be able to make more informed decisions about your site and space needs. And then that materials and style bit can come a bit later. As you're thinking about your needs, your wants and your needs in your home, you're also going to want to think about changes in lifestyle that might occur over the next several years. You're probably, if you're building a home or undergoing a major remodel, you're going to want that to last a while. It's a big investment. So is there a possibility that someone in your family may have an ability change? My father has Parkinson's, and that can lead to him needing a wheelchair. So I actually considered that when I bought my own home. Some of the homes we looked at had a lot of steps just to get in that front door, and I wanted my dad to be able to visit us, whether or not he was in a wheelchair. So that was a consideration for my family. So just be a temporary change, like a teenager breaking a leg playing soccer, a hip surgery, knee replacement, on the like. So it could be a temporary or a more permanent ability change. Is the size of your family likely to grow or shrink? Kids on the way or moving out, an elderly parent moving in. So is your home able to accommodate those flexible needs? And yes, kids. So parents moving in, kids moving out, or kids coming in, all of those things can change what we're going to need down the road in a few years. As we're thinking about accessibility, it is worth mentioning that there are some design strategies you can employ that will make your home more adaptable to various different needs. These are often referred to as universal design, and they're useful to look at in any new home. Wider doors and halls and stairs can make it easier for someone in a wheelchair or a walker to navigate, but it can also make it easier for you to move that new sofa in as well. A powder room on the first floor removes the barrier of stairs to use the restroom for both you and your guests. Adding blocking in the walls and bathrooms can facilitate adding grab bars if they're needed later. You won't have to rip out the wall. Lever door handles are easier for someone with arthritis in their hands, and speaking from experience, for a parent with a baby on a hip and a bag of groceries in the other hand. So these things can make it easier for everybody. And I chose this picture. I really like this picture. It was a home where they had a child with disabilities. And what struck me about so many of the design decisions for this home is how beautiful they still are. This is a no-step shower. It allows them to roll in the chair for their child, to wash their child in easily. There's no lip there, but it's also absolutely gorgeous. So when we think about accessibility, we don't have to compromise our aesthetics to achieve that. Another consideration might be multiple lot units on a lot. Maybe that's why some of you are here. The home you're thinking about might be an added unit in your backyard. These can add that flexibility that we talked about for changing family size, and they can serve as a potential source of income or as a hedge against rising property taxes. It could be in the form of a garage apartment, a duplex, as we are showing here, or even a separate structure like a tiny home. Tiny homes and ADUs still seem to be a fairly hot topic of conversation in Austin at the moment. I've included a few of the current rules here, at least last time I checked, these were the current rules. But if you are thinking about a tiny home, just be aware that there are quite a few rules about how those are defined and what you can build where. So if you need help for that, reach out to us or the city. Durability. So we want to keep durability in mind as a potential want or need that can help you inform your material choices later. These choices may cost you more upfront, but save you money on insurance, maintenance, and replacement costs. So with reduced maintenance, they can also save you time and stress. That is a big factor for me personally. A metal roof is going to reflect heat, but it also stands up to a severe hailstorm a lot better than asphalt will. Metal termite shields add cost, but they can help prevent termite damage over the lifetime of the home. And those really, the only time to be able to get that in is when you're building the home from the get-go. So it's a permanent barrier, and I like it because it's a helpful solution to help prevent termites without using the chemicals. Let's also talk about home size. Quick poll. How many of you enjoy cleaning? Yeah, this guy up here in the top right, he seems to love cleaning, but looks like most of you are like me, not my favorite activity in the world. So when my husband and I bought our first home, we told our realtor that we didn't want to look at anything over 2,000 square feet. My realtor told me we were the first clients she had ever worked with that gave her a maximum size as opposed to a minimum one. And it was mostly because I didn't want to have to clean a house any larger than that. And like I said, this guy, he's having a blast, but not my favorite activity. So I had a maximum size home that I wanted to look at. So you want to think about space, not in terms of square footage, but rather in terms of what you want to do in your house. If you tell an architect you want a 2,500 square foot house, that's likely what they're going to deliver. If you tell them how you want to live in your home, it might turn out that you don't need that much space. So the average American home size has steadily increased since 1940. and the average family size has decreased. Smart design can result in a home with enough space for a convenient, comfortable lifestyle for its occupants without additional unneeded space. Square footage is not a component of beauty and elegance, and not only is a larger home going to cost you more and use more materials, but it comes with those other costs for heating and cooling, furnishing, cleaning, maintenance, etc. So we want to get the home the right size to meet our lifestyle, but not any larger than necessary. So think about how you spend your time. It might be possible that one room can evolve and serve more than one function. The room up on top here serves as a reception area for clients, a music room, and a homework space. How much do you entertain? When we're able to gather, friends and family, would a covered deck like this one that doesn't have to be heated and cooled all year serve as well? Or do you need a formal dining space because you have a large family that gathers every weekend? These are just different lifestyle things that you want to think about. One of my very favorite stories about space was that of a couple who hired a designer to create an addition to their home because they were feeling too cramped. When the designer visited the home, she asked if they had considered an alternate furniture arrangement. She was actually able to solve their problem by rearranging the furniture to just make better use of the space they had. The couple bought her dinner in compensation for saving them the cost and inconvenience of an addition it turned out they didn't need. So buying a designer dinner is a lot cheaper than building an entire addition. Solutions here can get pretty creative and they range from just making use of the height in a space, as we're seeing with the bunk beds, as well as the floor area, using appropriately scaled furniture, creating views from one space to another and to the outdoors to make a space feel larger. And for really small homes, we have even seen robotic furniture that can tuck a whole bedroom away into a bookcase for the day. So you can get creative on this in all kinds of different ways. Probably not the solution for everybody, but this picture with the robotic furniture is from the Fourth and condominium set. We were happy to be able to feature on the Cool House tour a number of years ago. Once you've spent some time thinking about your priorities and your goals, you're going to need to select a team. It takes a lot of people to make a house a reality. Even if you're just looking to buy a home, you're going to want to have both a knowledgeable realtor and an appraiser. Those are going to be important. The importance of a team approach to the design and construction of a green home really can't be overemphasized. It's the basis of green building. Through that sharing of expertise, better decisions get made, costs are reduced, the design and building process goes more smoothly, and the result is more successful. A good team is going to help you refine and prioritize those goals, and they'll be able to share and integrate their expertise. Green designs have to be properly implemented during the construction process. So if the builder and the contractor understands the green goals of the project, then the reasons for the related design and construction choices are going to be clear, and the everyday decisions that the builder has to make on the job site are going to be compatible with that. You want to look for team members who are committed to working cooperatively. Hopefully you can find some that are knowledgeable about green building, open to new ideas, and experienced in the kind of building you want. So how do you find them? So you can start with our professionals directory. In order to be listed on our directory, they have to have rated a home in the past 2 years. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to offer the Cool House tour this year, but we do have all of the Cool House tour books online and you can take a look in there and get some inspiration, see if there are homes that look like what you're hoping for, and the builders and team members will be listed there so you can see their work. And you could peruse the case studies on our website. That's another option to look at. If you are buying a home, look for our participant logo and ask the builder if they are rating the homes. Many developments in town are rating all of the homes, so you don't have to have a home custom built in order to get a green home. Whisper Valley is just one of the developments I mentioned. The Grove, Miller, there's lots of places where green homes are going up. Goodnight Ranch is another one. We have a map of those areas on our website if you're interested, where you can see where those developments are. They are getting rated, all of the homes. Ask lots of questions. In all cases, check references thoroughly. And at this point in the presentation, I am going to turn it over to Lee, who's going to be talking about designing for your conditions and your site. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Lee take it away from here.
Okay. So I hope that you all enjoyed Heidi's presentation about designing for your needs. But now what we're going to talk about is how you design for Austin's conditions. So back in the day when we had a Green by Design in person, we were able to ask the previous participants why they came to Green by Design and what they wanted in a home. And their answers varied from a net zero home to a great place for relaxing and entertaining friends to a super comfortable and healthy home for their family. Well, if you want a home that's comfortable in Austin, you won't design with the same principles that you'd use in Santa Barbara or Boston. And you wouldn't use a, yes, ma'am.
If you meant to be sharing your screen, it's not up for us yet.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
1 second. It's still not sharing?
Not yet.
That's funny because I clicked on the screen. Here, I'm gonna escape. And I'm clicking share screen and I'm checking on screen 1. Oh, is it showing my squash blossoms again?
It is showing your squash blossoms again.
1 second.
We did do a tech run, y'all.
There we go.
There you go. Take it away.
Sorry about that. Okay, so let me get us caught up here. All right, so here we are. You can see Austin right there at the end of the red arrow. And so, like I was saying, you want to have your architect from around here, not from up here or way out here. So if you're looking for inspiration, you're also going to want to look at other Austin homes. Like Heidi mentioned, you can look online at Old Cool House tour books. And you can look, especially look at our case studies online because we have new ones every year. All right, so how are you going to design for your conditions? You're going to think from large scale to small scale. All right, so when developing the design for your new home, the tendency though is to think of the building first, but you want to start with the big picture. And so you look at the Central Texas climate first, and then you progress to your area, your neighborhood, finally your site, your house, your French doors with the perfect handles that you spent 60 hours, or maybe if you're like me, more like 160 hours finding online, and then the beautiful Texas mountain laurel that you see out of your French doors with your perfect handles. Now, even if you're just contemplating a remodel of an existing home or an addition to an existing home, or you've already selected your lot for a new home, you still begin the design process by learning about the macro conditions before thinking about design specifics for your house or your lot. Understanding your climate conditions will help you better understand those features of your site and home that you want to take advantage of, and those features or conditions that you may wish to control or mitigate or somehow otherwise turn to your advantage. So what is the process for designing for your conditions? Okay, now listen to this carefully. Thinking about climate in the initial design phase is the most cost-effective strategy toward obtaining maximum energy efficiency and maximum comfort. Now, this is the most important thing anybody's gonna say tonight. My apologies to my boss, okay? Think about climate in the initial design phase is the most cost-effective strategy toward obtaining maximum energy efficiency and maximum comfort. You must understand the climate conditions in order to take advantage of your specific site conditions for good passive design. You need good passive design in order to reduce the size of your HVAC system and maximize the efficiency of the suite of comfort systems that you install, and to reduce the size of backup power needed from your home or your truck battery. Maximizing the efficiency of installed system inside the home ultimately reduces the cost and number of solar panels required to reach net zero energy. Or if you have limited space for panels, it might make the difference between panels providing 90% of your energy needs instead of maybe 60% or something. And so that's saving you money in upfront and in ongoing costs. All right, so now let's talk about risks. If you've lived here for at least a few years, then you've already seen a 100-year flood, or maybe 5. You've seen record drought, record high temperatures. So those kind of risks we might even call conditions, because risk implies uncertainty, and we know the lakes won't always have enough water. We know it's getting hotter. We know it's going to flood every few years or maybe every few months, but often even without relieving the drought. We're also in a high-risk area for termites. So we know that if we combine proximity of plants and moisture to the foundation and, say, first floor untreated wood or unprotected sweating plumbing, termites are going to find their feast. It's going to happen. As for floods, how many 100-year floods have we had in the last 20 years? You can see in the bottom of the slide, the bottom slide where it says flood risk, you see that red line, that is called flood alley. Now here in this flood alley, this area of Central Texas, only Bangladesh has more flood records than we do. That is, or rainfall records rather. So it's important to note that the city recently revised the flood maps and the list of 25, 100, and 500-year rain events. And so now, for example, the 100-year storm is now about 13 inches, comparable to the 50-year storm, what it used to be. So it's not 10 inches anymore for a 100-year storm, it's 13 inches. So that's a big deal. So parallel to this change, the 25-year floodplain in many areas will be the same or similar to what the 100-year floodplain was. If you want more information on this and to look up to see how this affects your lot, then Google Austin Atlas 14 for more info. Now, in case Heidi didn't mention this, we are going to be providing you all with lists of links after the third presentation, so that if you don't take a screenshot or I just say something and it's not written down, all of this information will be available to you. Okay, so now back to the risk. As for tornadoes, we're in the moderate risk zone, but still we know that there was a lot of devastation to the north of us in Gerald in the 90s, so we're not that far from the dangerous zone for tornadoes. So we might consider tornadoes to be our most unpredictable risk. All right, so now let's look at drought and wildfires. So a couple of years ago, I looked at all the weekly drought maps and I had to go all the way back to 2004. Okay, so we're talking almost 20 years now to find a year in which Travis County didn't spend at least part of the year in the bright orange zone. That's the severe drought zone. So you can see the U.S. Drought Monitor for October the 11th, 2011. This was the worst map I was ever able to find. Okay, so 2011, that was our drought of record. And this was just 2 weeks before the Halloween floods. Now, on the left side, you can see last week's map. And if you look at Travis County, you can see we're all over the place. At the very corner where we join Hays County, we're in exceptional drought. And then in most of the western part of the county, we're in extreme drought. And then we're in moderate drought in the eastern part of the county. So hopefully we'll get some more rain pretty soon so that we can be in a better spot. But remember, all it takes is a couple more months with no rain or almost no rain, and we can be in another exceptional drought. And some climatologists are predicting that in the future, we'll see more years with just 4 or 5 major rain events with droughts in between. So we need to plan for that. Now, wildfire risk is related to drought risk, but we don't have to go through a long drought for wildfire risk to increase. You can go online to the Texas A&M site to see the wildfire risk for your particular lot. And the strategies that protect your home from wildfire will vary with its lot and its location. Note that Austin now has a wildland urban interface ordinance with rules for enhanced fire-resistant construction and landscaping. So you'll be able to look that up online as well. Now, some of you may wonder why I've not listed cold weather as a risk. Well, for the same reason that I haven't listed hot weather as a risk. We have cold days and hot days every year. Sometimes it's extra hot or extra cold. And so you may have been hearing the terms resilience or passive survivability over the last few months. Well, the homes that are the most comfortable, that is, they passively provide the most protection against the elements by staying cool the longest when it's extra hot, or staying warm the longest when it's extra cold or the power goes out, are the homes that are designed for the Texas climate. Okay? So your extra protection comes from designing for the Texas climate. And the reasons are going to become clearer as I continue through the presentation. All right, so in case you weren't feeling it last summer, here in Travis County, we are in the hot, humid climate zone. As you can see, we've got 4 climate zones in Texas. And then in the next few decades, it's possible the red zone here of the hot, dry counties may move closer to us. We've often been in the red zone on a 12-month basis. You can see Travis County, and here's Mason County. That's less than 100 miles away. there in the hot, dry climate zone. Now, in the 2010-2011 drought of record that I was talking about a few minutes ago, Austin only got 9.4 inches of rain. Now, that was an anomaly because our average is around 32, 33 inches. But back in the mid-50s, we had 9.4 inches of rain one year. So we've got no reason to believe that what happened in 2011 and in the 50s can't happen again. And just as a note, receiving less than 10 inches of rain a year is one of the defining characteristics of a desert. So that might seem a little scary. So you'll be considering the climate and the risks that we just talked about when you're thinking about your house design and your landscaping design. Now, we won't talk about landscaping much tonight. That's going to be one of the focuses next Tuesday night. So now let's talk about what affects our comfort. You can see this screenshot from Heidi's phone back in August of 2011. The first week of August is typically the hottest week in the summer, although I'm not sure that that summer that this was actually the hottest week. But anyway, so given Austin's climate, how are we going to stay comfortable? Because it really doesn't matter if a home is efficient if it isn't comfortable. So what affects our comfort? So temperature is the most obvious thing. I think we'd all agree that 105 is hot. But what about 85? Well, it depends on whether it's an April day in Austin or Houston, right? So why is that? It's because of relative humidity. 85 can be comfortable as it usually is here on a spring day, or it might be miserable if the humidity tops 90%. So what else can affect our comfort? The sun, its angles and radiation, wind, its speed, direction, and consistency or frequency, precipitation, annual rainfall, when the rain falls, how much falls in a given rain event. It's important to understand how these conditions affect comfort in order to design with them and not against them. And we'll get deeper into this concept when discussing the site in a few minutes. So when are we comfortable without using mechanical systems? The top chart here shows heating and cooling degree days for Austin's entire year. You can see that there are 3 months when we only heat. There are 5 months when we only cool. And there are 4 months when we may heat and cool. But then the question is, do we really need to run our AC all the time? Well, we know that we don't. We're certainly running our air conditioners every day in August, but better insulated homes with good shade and good windows don't need AC on many days in May, for example. Also, in a well-designed, well-insulated home, you don't have to turn on the heat when it goes down to 50 degrees at night. And if the average annual temperatures prevail, you may not need to turn on your AC for cooling until mid-June or later in a home designed for our climate. And so that's what the two bottom charts are showing. Okay. In a well-designed and constructed home, we can reduce the time that we need to cool from maybe 50% of the year to 30% of the year, and the time that we heat from 25% to 10%. That means that 60% of the year, we may not need our mechanical system, and that's wonderful. Thus, through better design response to our local climate, we can nearly halve our demand for heating and cooling and remain comfortable. Now, note that you may need to dehumidify your house, even if you don't need to lower the temperature, okay? In order to be comfortable, you may have to lower that humidity, even though the temperature is fine. And Michael and Con are going to talk about that more on night 3. All right, so now people often have questions about thermal mass and whether that works in hot, humid climates. Okay, they want to know, are these thick masonry or rammed earth walls ideal for Central Texas? So these walls have high exterior thermal mass. That doesn't mean that they keep the heat out completely. It means that they slow down the transfer of heat from the outside to the inside in the summer and from the inside to the outside in winter. And this is an ideal strategy in dry climates where there's a high daily swing in temperature, like Martha, where it might be 95 in the day and 55 at night. Unfortunately, in Austin, our summer swings are often only around 20 to 25 degrees during the hottest months. It doesn't get below 70 or 75 at night, and some nights in summer it doesn't even get below 80. So we don't want heat radiating through the walls into the house at midnight. Look, however, at the photo on the right. This home has excellent shading, deep porches on both the south and the north sides. So the walls are well shaded in summer and less shaded in winter. In summer, the walls absorb less heat too, because of that good shade. Also note the clear story windows up top for removing the hot air. This strategic shading combined with thermal mass can be a great combination. And if you're into natural building, then talk to an architect skilled in natural building design. This house on the right was designed by Gail Borst, for example. And I'll be mentioning several other architects who have rated houses as we go through. Design Build Live is the organization in town with many experts on natural building. You might also look up the Earth and Construction Initiative in San Antonio. They rarely meet in Austin, but they have meetings online on Zoom now, so you can attend and learn about who's doing what in natural building. So now let's talk about thermal mass inside the house, because that's a different story. Austin soil temperatures are ideal for uninsulated slab floors. They're cool in the summer and take advantage of the warm soil temperature in the winter. Let the sun in so that it can shine on your slab in the winter, and it's going to warm the floor for hours. Let the low-angled winter sun shine on a stone wall in your house, and the wall's going to radiate the heat back into the room through the night. In the summer, in a well-designed home, the sun's not going to touch the stone wall. The wall will store the cool from the night and act as a heat sink during the day. So now let's talk about the thing that we say all the time. It's not just the heat, it's the humidity. So our humidity, as you see up on the top, is around 90 to 100% at sunrise. And that's not comfortable even when it's only 75 degrees outside. By noon, you see at the bottom on the left, the humidity may be down to 50%, but that's just because the relative humidity, that is, may be down to 50% because the air is warmer and can hold more moisture. But by late afternoon, the relative humidity may be even lower, but again, that's just because the hot air can hold even more moisture. So how can we be more comfortable when it's a little too hot and a little too humid? Well, one way is to add some airspeed. Now, passive ventilation is more effective during spring and fall when the air temperatures outside are closer to the comfort zone. Okay, a long south facade with screened openings is ideal for opening up and letting in the predominant southeast winds. Okay, if you look at the chart for January, here on the left, you can see where the larger points are of the north and the northeast. Those are going to be the most likely wind directions in January. And then in July, you see it's going to be usually from south to southeast are going to be our predominant breezes. So you can plan for that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So what can we learn from early Texans? All right. We can learn a lot about the designs that are most appropriate for our region by studying the vernacular designs people used when we weren't relying on air conditioning and other technologies to keep us comfortable. So you can look at this dog trot house, and other older houses, and you can steal their floor plans. You can steal their ideas about orientation. You can look at their roof and overhang design and see how they design their porches. Look at the window size, look at the placement, look at this nice breezeway. Like I say on the slide, steal the best ideas. Don't be ashamed. It's really a smart strategy to do what people used to do 100 and 200 years ago. And so here's an example of adapting the older forms and strategies to suit a modern lifestyle. You can see this house is similar to the dog trot house. And also many of you surely remember mid-century homes that had breezeways using the same concept. You just open up the sliding glass doors on either side, and you've got a nice breeze going through the room or the porch. Now, here's another house of a home designed for our climate. This one's by Barley Pfeiffer, designed, and also a rated house. It's got well-placed windows, deep overhangs, large porches, trees for shade. Now, note that you can design a comfortable green home in any style, as Heidi mentioned, and we'll see a variety of styles from rated homes as we continue on. Excuse me. Okay, so we're not going to stop for questions now. I'm just going to go on to the next module, and then Heidi and I will answer questions about all of the presentations at the end. So now let's talk about designing for your site. So the first thing is that we want to work with nature, and we start with the basic laws of nature. And one of the first ones is the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. So think about this in relation to the way you move around the house throughout the day and the night. Where do you want to be when the sun is setting? In a room with a view of the setting sun, or in a shading room with a view of the sunlight on your yard? Now, there's no right answer here. So just think about the sun in relation to the large shade trees already on your site, or that you might want to plant to shade your house as well. Now, in the middle, hot air rises. Think about the elevation. Is your house at the top of the hill, or a side of a hill, or in a valley? Is it adjacent to a cool shaded area, or water, or a large hot paved area? What is the location of the house relative to the prevailing breezes in relation to these cooler or warmer areas? For example, an afternoon breeze flowing under trees or over plants will be much cooler when it reaches your porch than a breeze flowing over hot pavement. Now, on the right, water flows downhill. So think about how you're going to get water off your house, where the water will go, and how you'll channel it, and what you're going to use the water for. Also, think about following the sun. Consider the sun angles during the different seasons. Normally, try to orient the house so that the long sides face north and south, and the short sides east and west, and have those short sides often with less glazing. This is ideal for keeping direct sunlight out of the house in summer, allowing more direct sunlight in winter, allowing more areas of the home access to the south-southeast breezes, and allowing for better orientation for solar panels if you decide to put them on your roof. Consider the ideal location for various rooms and porches, and consider the locations of rooms and porches according to views on your lot as well. So how do you analyze the site? Well, you might want to start with a basic diagram. Think about how you're going to get water around the house, but use it on your site instead of wasting it in the street. In this instance, you might decide, how are you going to take advantage of north views? Is that going to be with good tight windows? Are you going to use southeast breezes to channel through the living space? Think about all of these things as you're looking at your site plan and as you're walking around in your yard. All right. So now, how do we actually use the wind to cool the house naturally, or at least get rid of the heat? So consider the locations of windows, of porches, of kitchens. According to the summer prevailing breezes that we saw on the windrows, think about the breezes that way. Place the windows where they can catch the breezes, because the wind pressure can increase with good window placement. Place porches where you can enjoy the breezes and the cool air before it enters the house through the windows or doors shaded by the porch. Also, you might consider placing a porch on the east or northeast side of the house where it will be the coolest in the evening. Because if the porch is in the northeast corner of the house, then it will be shaded by the house in the evening. Now, when I say the north side of the house, though, in Austin, remember that little diagram I showed you? When you're in late June, the sun is going to come all the way around 30 degrees north of west, almost 30 degrees north of west. So if your house actually faces due north, which is not that common in Austin, then you're still going to get some of that sun coming in on the longest summer days. But typically in Austin, we've got a cant of 30 degrees, which is ideal. And so you won't have that problem. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So the north or northwest side of the house is ideal for the kitchen because wind pressure allows for slightly better heat transfer out of the house in summer and into the winter. But as we're building less leaky homes, this strategy is really starting to become obsolete. So if you're strategic about keeping heat out of the kitchen, it's really cooking outdoors or using an induction cooktop is now the better strategies. So also think about putting buffer rooms on the west side. And by buffer rooms, I mean rooms that can be warmer and you don't care, like a garage, utility rooms, closets. So if possible, you want to have less window area on the west side of the house to avoid the heat gain. So having utility rooms and closets, which need very little window area to light them nicely on the west side of the house is a really good strategy. So how do we cool the house naturally? One of the ways is to consider the movement of air through the house. So one of the ways to cool the house is to create pathways for hot air to enter in the lower stories and exit through the upper stories, or enter through lower windows and exit through higher windows. Take advantage of stairwells, cupolas, or clear stories to increase the stack effect. This technique has been used for thousands of years and it still works. All right, so now let's talk about window shading strategy. When thinking about overhangs, windows are the most important elements to shade. So consider the orientation and the location of the windows in relation to the overhang. So if you look in the left-hand photo, you'll see how the overhangs don't shade most of the windows. and they're only going to work close to solar noon. And the windows on the lower floors, you see, looks like they need their own shading devices because the overhangs are not shading them. Now, if you look at the right photo, on the other hand, you see how the overhang is close to the windows. And this approach works well in southeast and west orientations. The summer sun is going to come in the windows only in the very early morning or in the very late afternoon. And you can combine this approach with strategic tree planting for the east and the west orientations. So just to explain how this works a little further, you can see how now the sun is sort of at an angle, so late in the afternoon. And what that means is that this big shadow that you see over the windows as the sun goes down, that shadow is going to rise, okay? And so eventually it's going to become less effective because it's going to arise above the bottom of the windows. But you can see that just outside the picture, there are trees which are shading the walkway here and the flower bank. And so as the sun goes down, the shadow from those trees are going to take the place of the diminishing shadow from the overhang. And so that's how you can think holistically using the landscaping to have good shade on the east and the west sides. Now on the south side, because you wouldn't necessarily want the trees to shade your windows in the winter time, you wouldn't use the strategy of having the trees so close to the house. Okay, so how are you going to figure out how this is going to work? So one of the tools you can use is this susdesign.com. And what you do is use this tool to figure out how much sun you're going to have coming through a given window at different times of the year. And so you use it to figure out the effectiveness of different depths of overhang at different heights above the window. So you go to this website, you input your parameters, and out it's going to spit a little chart that we'll see in a minute. For more detailed shading info, you can model on Google SketchUp or AutoCAD or some other software. And this will help you to find the right combination of integral shading and vegetative shading. It'll also help you to figure out what configuration will allow winter sun to enter and warm your house. Remember, though, that indirect sunlight, not direct sunlight, is ideal for daylighting. People are often afraid that deep overhangs will make a house dark and depressing. I used to hear that a lot. But actually, not having overhangs is what makes your house dark and depressing, because you have to draw the blinds almost all day long to keep the direct sun from heating up the house and glaring in your face. Think of how smart it is to have a wide brim hat on instead of being bareheaded with no sunglasses at 3 o'clock on a hot day. And think of the difference of a house that's protected by overhangs as opposed to a house that's not protected by overhangs. Okay, so when you use the susdesign.com tool, it's going to spit out a little chart like this. And so it's going to show you how much direct sunlight you're going to get all day each month. So you try to keep the direct sunlight out of your south-facing windows from late March through late September, that is when it's hot, but you want to let in the light during the winter. So you can see that the strategy input in the diagram worked because all of the sun is blocked from May through August. You see where it says 100% in the black here, and a good deal in September as well. But there's almost full sun from November to February. You see where the light colored blocks are. So then what kind of roof is best? And so you want to think about the orientation and the color and the clear area. Think about all of the implications of roof simplicity, complexity, and orientation when you're designing the house. For style, you may prefer a flat or almost flat roof or shed roof. Or you may want a shed roof because all the water will be channeled to one side of the house. A simple gable may cost the least and be the best option, especially if the orientation is ideal for sunlight and shade. The orientation and clear area is ideal for solar panel installation, or it may allow for simple gutter and downspout configuration. An advantage of the hip roof with overhangs is having overhangs closer to windows on all sides. Now, a more complex roof may be ideal if it can create a better orientation for sun and shade, or it can create the option for solar panels, or it can help to avoid cutting large shade tree limbs maybe. Now note that roof material and color affects reflectance, which means that less heat is going to enter your house. So choose a light colored roof. Now light colored metal is ideal, and lighter colored shingles are typically better than darker shingles. Now even medium colored metal is better than light colored shingles though. Energy Star shingles can have a light substrate that makes even a darker color reflect heat. So think about that if you choose to have shingles. For overall sustainability, however, metal is better because it'll last a lifetime even through hailstorms. And it's usually made from 90% to 100% recycled metal that can be recycled over and over forever. Now you're going to learn more about holistic evaluation of materials when Pat talks about materials next week. Okay, so now we're going to talk about overhang effectiveness and have a little example here. This is my house. So it has both a gable roof and a shed roof on the front. So the shed roof would have the similar effect of a hip roof. And so you can see how at 1:30 p.m., which is solar noon in our part of the time zone during Central Daylight Time. So noon is not when the sun is highest here on the longest day of the year. It's at 1:30. Okay. And you can see that all of the walls of my house are shaded. Now, this orientation is south-southwest. And so this is that ideal orientation that I was talking about a little earlier, so that you will see that I'm going to get some sun on this side of my house, but on the opposite side of my house where I have my porches, the sun does not come in the windows there on that northeast side. Okay, so now let's see what's going on at 2:30. On June the 26th. So we're almost at the summer solstice. You can see that downstairs, that overhang, which is 30 inches, well, a little bit more because I've got the gutter there too, is completely shading the first floor. And on the second floor, where I've got the gable, where you can see that that is higher above the windows, that the sun is just about to come in that lowest window there. Now, on August the 3rd, now that's usually the hottest day of the year. So not the longest day of the year, but the hottest. You can see that we've got a different situation. Downstairs, it's the same. The wall's completely covered in shade, but the sun is coming in about half of the window upstairs under the gable, because the gable is higher above the windows, whereas down below where I've got the shed roof, it's close to the windows. So it's like, okay, so what do you do about that? Well, you do what my neighbor did just a couple blocks away, have the same orientation. They've got an awning over the window, and you can see that it covers the whole window even at 2:30 on August the 3rd. So now let's go back to June the 26th at 3:30. What's going on? Okay, downstairs you can see the wall is still covered, but we've got a little bit more sun coming in the windows upstairs. And then what's going on at 4:30? Well, you can see the windows are almost completely in sun upstairs, but downstairs, we're still not having a shadow, so that the sun is still not coming in through the windows. So now at 4:30 though, on June the 26th, what's going on in my neighbors? Their upstairs windows only has a tiny little triangle of sun going in. So their overhang is really helping them out, both in August and in June. So now at 5:30, what's happening? The sun is just about to come in the windows downstairs, but you can see that the tree on the west side of the house is taking over and starting to shade the house. And then by 6:30, you can see that the tree is even shading the windows that aren't protected by the gable here. And also shading the windows where the sun has just started to come up at the bottom on the first floor. So that gives you an idea of the effectiveness of the gable, gable and the hip or shed roof at this orientation. So now there are all sorts of good shading options, and shading doesn't have to be solid to be effective. And there are infinite options for shading panels, and you can use a variety of strategies according to your orientation, your window size, and your relationship to overhangs, your outdoor shade needs, and so on. So now let's look at an example of a good integrated shading strategy. Here's the south side of a 5-star house designed by Travis Young, and you might remember it from the Cool House tour a few years back. You can notice how several shading strategies were combined to create wonderful shade here. First, they preserved this great big tree. And then second, you can see that they've got wide overhangs. And then you can see there's a screen porch and a balcony on the east side shading the deck off the living area in the morning here. And then you've got this brick wall on the west side of the deck shading the deck and the screen porch in the afternoon. Now, note that the high overhang here will allow winter direct sun into the living room through the glass doors. And in the summer, though, because of these wide overhangs, only indirect sun will create a nice quality of light in the room. So now let's talk about letting the sun in as opposed to keeping it out. What about daylighting strategies? So see here how high windows can bounce light off of ceilings and walls to create even light in a room. You don't need blinds or curtains for privacy or glare. You can make the windows operable for stack ventilation as well, but be sure to plan for access up front, especially if your operable window is in a stairwell. Be sure that you can actually reach the windows if they can't be controlled remotely. Okay, so this is my kitchen, and I use this as an example of how to put light where you want it. When I was thinking about how to design my kitchen, the problem is that this is on the west-northwest side of the house. And so if you remember from the sun diagram, that means that the sun is coming directly into my face during the hot time of the year. So what am I going to do about that? Well, upstairs, I have these big overhangs, and so I have larger windows, but downstairs, I didn't want to have blinds to bring down to mitigate the glare and the heat. So what am I going to do? So I decided to have these small windows that I'm only 5'2". So the top of the windows is just below my eye level. So the sun doesn't shine in my eyes when I'm making dinner. And so the windows are small, so the room doesn't heat up. And also, I noticed that on December 22nd, so the shortest day of the year, the setting sun shines through the windows at a shallow angle and bounces off the white trim. So I get a little sun there, which is really nice. And also the sun bounces off the counter and makes a nice light the whole 24-foot depth of the room. So here's a situation where smaller windows and well-placed windows actually creates more light and light where you want it than larger windows would. Because if I had larger windows, then I would just have to pull the blinds down and cover them down to this level anyway. So let's talk a little bit more about window options and all the different things that you'd be considering. Here's different ways to use 20 square feet of glass. Now, another possibility is to have a high window maybe and a low one. So you've got one for view and one for light. Think about where you can make cross breezes. What kind of light do you want and where do you want it? How are you going to shade the windows? How will you place your furniture? What views do you want? From a standing position, seated, lying, or all of those? What views do you want to avoid both into your house and out of the house? Because maybe you don't want to look at your neighbor's AC compressor, trash bin, recycling bin, and compost bin out your window. Again, the strategy combines the windows with the overhangs with the vegetation and perhaps with a fence or other obstruction. So let's look and see how this was put into practice. So you might have seen this home by architect Karina Cole on the AIA Homes Tour or the Cool House Tour a few years ago. You can see these small, narrow, high windows are on the east side, and they face the neighbor's house. So they've got privacy, but it also gives them nice light. The large window here on the left faces north into the backyard. And then on the right, this big window by the breakfast nook faces onto the side porch. And so you can see how the placement and the size and the shape of the window uses the views or lack of views and the orientations to good effect here. Now let's talk about heat and humidity again in practice. Let's not forget the outdoors. We want to keep the heat and humidity where we want it. So think about cooking outdoors in the summer, showering outdoors in the summer, or hanging your laundry out anytime. You can see that this outdoor kitchen is ready-made for social distancing, which hopefully we won't have to do that so much, at least for many years. And this is the fancy version, but you can do the same with a grill and a shade sail under your trees. Now, many homeowners will build huge, largely unused indoor spaces for entertaining. Heidi touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is Texas. Most people entertain large groups more outside than inside. So think about porches again. They shade your walls and windows. They make your home cooler. They allow for views outdoors with no need for blinds. They create shaded, cooler outdoor space. They create an enclosed, safe outdoor space for children to play and a good, easily accessible outdoor space for people who are mobility challenged. It's also a great place to put your fireplace. And so you can entertain on your back porch or on your back deck. But think carefully, though, about shading your decks. It makes them useful during more weather conditions. It can make them more durable because they'll have less sun and water damage. Now, if you do want to have it more open and say have a pergola, have the pergola members run in both directions because that makes for better shading and glare protection in all seasons. Okay, so we've gone through a whole lot of stuff here, and I hope that these slides have given you a lot of ideas about how to create your cool house by responding to Austin's climate and looking carefully at your site. So we at Austin Energy Green Building are always here to help you, whether you're rating your house or not. And so now Heidi and I are ready to answer a few questions. There we go.
And so if you have questions, go ahead and type them in that Q&A box. Otherwise, we're going to consider ourselves having answered everything. This is a great question. Is the green building program available outside Travis County? Yes, with a caveat. So we have what we call our extended area rating program. It operates in about 27 surrounding counties. Lee, is that right? Is it 27?
Yes.
Yeah. We've picked those counties. There's a map available on our website of that area because it's within the same general climate zone that Austin is, and they don't have another competing green building program. So San Antonio has their own green building program, so we don't operate there. And the way we administer those ratings outside of the county, because we are municipally funded and we can't really afford to be sending our staff, we have a network of extended area raters that we have vetted that can work with you on ratings outside of Austin Energy's service territory. All right, Lee, I think this next one is for you. It said, which side did you say to put the kitchen on?
Yeah, so you're correct. It was the northwest side. But if you're building a new house, it's probably going to be so well sealed that your best strategy for keeping your kitchen cool is going to be to have an induction cooktop and to cook outside in the summertime.
All right. What was the group that meets online from San Antonio? Didn't catch the name.
Oh, hold on one second. Answer another one while I'm looking that up.
Okay. Do you have recommendations for contractors or manufacturers that could help with green additions, for example, awnings? That is, so we don't have down to that level. We don't certainly have contractors on our green building professional directory. We don't have down to the level of manufacturers. When it comes to manufacturers or particular supplies, we aren't working directly with the suppliers, and we're not supposed to, as a city organization, recommend particular products. What we try and recommend is how you choose them. Next week, Pat's going to get into a lot more detail around how you make material choices, but generally, with an awning, you know, an awning's going to do what an awning's going to do. So finding somebody who has reputable recommendations, I always get some references and check them to install it, and then pick the one that works for your budget and your aesthetic style. Did you
Yeah.
find that, San Antonio?
Yes, it's Earth and Construction Initiative. So that's Earth and Construction Initiative in San Antonio.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We're considering adding 2 small tough sheds in the backyard as studio spaces. They would not have plumbing. Is it possible to create green buildings from prefab sources like this? Do you want to take that, Lee?
Yeah, so I don't know like exactly what a tough shed is, but I can tell you that if it doesn't have insulation, then you're going to use more air conditioning in it. Also, a cheap way to make the tough shed cooler would be to put radiant barrier on the ceiling if it with the shiny side facing down, assuming that there, is no insulation in a tough shed ceiling. So how green you would want to make it would depend on how much work you want to do to insulate it generally. But also it depends on how you want to cool it. Like, do you need it to be cooled? Like, do you say backyard studio space? Does that mean it needs to be air conditioned? If so, then insulation is definitely going to lower your ongoing costs there. But if you're just going to use the studio during the more temperate times, then you might still want to put insulation in it, just like you would in your house, in order to extend the time that those little sheds would be comfortable.
And I guess if you're happen to be asking about green building in terms of actually getting a rating for it, we would need to look carefully at the scope. Typically, something that's not plumbed probably isn't going to have enough scope of work for us to offer it a rating. But as Lee is mentioning, you can always take the principles, take this process that we offered you here tonight, and make greener decisions in terms of how you're approaching those sheds.
And if you have questions too, like we mentioned, you don't have to rate a house in order for us to help you out. So you can contact us. You can see my email on the screen there. And you can contact me and I'll be glad to answer questions if you have them as you move along.
We have a question from Rachel here. Would you recommend any source of house designs that achieve these goals? For example, which side of the house to put rooms, etc. Web or book? We have a whole list. I think it's in the resource document that we will send out at the end of this. So the not so big house is one that I like for just thinking about home size. There's was it Sun, Wind, and Rain, I think, is a really good one that talks about passive design. But we do have a whole list that we'll put in of different resources that we can put in the links that go out after the presentations.
Right. And also remember, the plants that you would see in these books wouldn't necessarily work on your lot, but they're a demonstration of principles. So you can use those to give you an idea of how things work, together with my slide presentation and the other slide presentations that you'll see in the other nights to help guide you related to those principles. Also, just look at other houses that are have the same orientation of yours that you admire in your neighborhood, or you can look on Austin maps to see other neighborhoods where the houses have the same orientation as your lot and go and see what other people have done. Also, as we mentioned, you can look at old Cool House tour books and at our case studies to get more ideas about how people use the principles of green building in their designs.
Okay. Stanley, you put in Cedar Creek or Bastrop. I assume that is in reference to rating services and surrounding counties. And yes, Bastrop is within our extended rating area. Does your team help with assessments around making recommendations for more eco-friendly homes? So we consult with folks who want to do a rating, and we do rate remodels. We often are happy to take a meeting if you just want to chat with us. In terms of an assessment, our team doesn't typically come out and do like an ECAD audit or anything like that of that level, though we can certainly point you in the direction of auditors and tell you about the types of assessments that you might want to do in terms of understanding the existing home that you're working with. We can kind of give you more general guidance. Lee, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that was a good answer.
Okay. Oh, goodness. You change your motto
for Travis.
Do you? Okay, good.
Yes. So Travis says, how would you change or modify current City of Austin residential zoning restrictions to allow for more environmentally friendly design, if at all? So one of the things that we can help you with here at Austin Energy Green Building is if you're having a problem with the city and you've got an overhang that is going into one of your setback areas, and that overhang is creating good shade for your building, then we can sometimes write a letter for you to the city to allow you an exception so that the rule doesn't keep you from good shading.
Yeah. Send us an email and we can get with you further on that, but that is something that we have done. Are there affordable homes on the Cool Home Tour? Yes. We have featured homes of a variety of different price points. We've definitely featured apartments from Foundation Communities, so that's deeply affordable in an apartment context. I believe we have featured, it's been a little while, but I believe we've featured some Habitat homes in the past. We regularly rate the Habitat homes. So a lot of times what we can feature on the Cool House Tour varies depending on the availability of and willingness of those homeowners to be generous and open up the home to us to allow for that. We've definitely featured market rate homes that are production homes and custom homes that are all different sizes and price points.
And you'll find those homes in the old Cool House Tour books. That's a great way to see who are the builders and architects who are designing and building those affordable houses. So look in our case studies and at the old Cool House Tour books to find out who's still doing that.
Yeah, and we've had ADUs on the Cool House Tour. We've had renovations on the Cool House Tour. Do you know of a thermostat HVAC system that can be set to maintain an optimal temperature and humidity level? The only reason I turn on my AC half the time is the humidity. We can get into that a little bit here, and then night 3 we'll get into more of those details. But Lee, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, you'll learn a lot more about this on night 3. But one example of a system is I have a 2-stage HVAC system that has humidity controls on it. So I not only tell it what I want the temperature to be, but I tell my thermostat allows me to set my desired maximum humidity level. And then I can tell the thermostat, okay, how many degrees am I willing to let it go below the set point in order to reach my maximum desired humidity level. And I'm from Virginia, so I used to like it really humid, but now that I've lived here for 25 years, I like it dry. So I set it at 48%. And every once in a while, I'll look at my thermostat and I'll see that it's saying that it's dehumidifying. So that means it's cooling just to dehumidify. But that's not the most efficient way to actually dehumidify by cooling. The most efficient thing to do is to have a dehumidifier, and you just turn on the dehumidifier in order to get that humidity out. So I also have just a roll around dehumidifier that I got online for like $165, and I have it in my laundry room. And when I feel like it's a little bit too damp, especially in the wintertime when I definitely don't want it any cooler, I'll just turn that on for a few hours until it gets to the right humidity. And there are lots of other strategies that you'll learn about on the 3rd night.
Does tinting or frosting windows help with efficiency? So windows today, modern windows, come with lots of different coatings. Usually you can't actually see the coating. It wouldn't be a tinted window in the same sense that you might think of on your car. There are 2 values that you look at on a window. There's the U value, and this is generally more important for winter and keeping it warm inside and cool outside. And then there's the SHGC value. This is the solar heat gain coefficient. That number is has to do with how much heat gain from solar hitting the window gets through. So the lower the SHGC value, the better that window is at blocking out the sunlight. I generally wouldn't recommend putting on my own like tint to a window, just because I'd be concerned about the compatibility of whatever that coating that I was adding to the window might be, and any possible damage it could do to any coatings that might already be on that window. If your windows are well shaded, the SHGC value matters a little bit less. And then on the U value, it's the same. The lower the number, the better and more efficient that window is. Let's see. It seems trendy to include many windows that don't open. Can we assume this depends on whether we want ventilation, etc.? I tend to usually want them all to open if possible. Leah, I'll kick that to you.
Okay. So, yes, it does sometimes seem trendy to include windows that don't open. One advantage of windows that don't open is that they let in less sound, and they usually are a tighter window. That is, they're letting less air leak through. That said, you want to be strategic about where you put windows that don't open and shut, because I too like windows that I can raise and lower. Because even though I have allergies, I still like to open the windows in the springtime and in the fall and let that fresh air in. And Rich's question about stack ventilation, at the top of the 2-story stairwell. Yes, that definitely works. But like I mentioned, you want to be sure that the window is somewhere in the stairwell where you can reach it, unless you have a motorized opening and closing of it.
Yeah, generally the higher you can get it, the better that stack ventilation is going to work. If we are working with a green architect, is there a need to specifically work with a green builder? Is a builder when it comes to a blueprint, or can a builder add details after the planning stage is done? I love this question. Yeah, I think you're going to be better off working with a green builder. You don't have to, but that communication is going to be easier if you have a green builder and a builder that understands why those decisions were made. There's going to be things that come up during construction that need to be modified. Perhaps you specified something and due to supply chain issues or just changes that piece of equipment, that particular material is not available. A builder that understands why the building was designed the way it was and is in good communication and values that communication with both you and your architect is going to do a better job of finding substitutions that will work better. There are times, I'm an architect, so I feel like I can say this, it's very different to draw everything on paper than it is to build it in 3 dimensions. So even the best architects, sometimes we haven't thought through everything and a detail needs to be kind of figured out in the field. And again, a green builder is going to be better at understanding what the trade-offs are and understanding green goals and doing that. So, but I would prioritize a good communicator over I would probably prioritize a good communicator in terms of a builder rather than just one that might have built a green building in the past, but there's probably a lot of overlap there. Let's see, I'm from Italy. I work in an architecture studio. Your webinar is very interesting. About indoor radon, there's some laws in the US about it. How much radon can be a problem for the health of a building? Goodness. So radon is very location specific. Yes, you do want to watch out for it because it is pretty much undetectable in your home unless you test for it. So a lot of new homes will have radon mitigation systems where it allows the radon from the soil, if it's there, to vent out and not kind of come into the home itself. So yeah, radon can be a problem. I don't have enough experience with it to tell you how much is a problem. It's really hard to tell if you're going to have radon on your site because it is pretty without testing, just because it is pretty location specific. There are some maps and there's parts of Texas that are more prone and parts of the country that are more prone to it. But yeah, without testing, it's really just hard to tell. Anything to add, Lee?
No, that's good. From what I have seen, Austin in general is not a high radon area. Where I grew up,
Same.
Richmond, Virginia, was very high radon area, so people were concerned about it there and would have those venting strategies that you were talking about.
Yeah, that matches my experience too. I don't think it's been considered a big problem here. Do black exterior walls and black shingles increase summer heat gain into a home? Yes, but if you have really good insulation, you can mitigate it. There's other things that probably you would worry about first. But yeah, in general, a black exterior wall and definitely, and even more so, black shingles. I would get rid of the black shingles before I would worry about the walls. But they do increase how much heat is coming into the home. It's just not that much. Make sure your insulation is good first. Will Austin Energy put on the Cool House Tour next year, 2024? I don't know. We are going to have to figure out that out. The leadership at Texas Solar Energy Society, who was our co-producer of that tour, has changed. Tours are not as big a priority or an area of expertise for them, and so they are focused on some different fundraising strategies. And right now, our strategy has been looking at collaborating more tightly with AIA and the Committee on the Environment. The American Institute of Architects has in recent years been embracing green building as fundamental to good design much better than they did in the past. And so we had several green homes that were featured on the AIA Homes Tour this year. And so that's one of the avenues that we've been focusing on in lieu of the Cool House Tour. I'm sad that the Cool House Tour is not happening, but just is what it is at the moment. How do we find a pre-built green home in the Austin area? Is it easy? So I guess the first thing to do to find a green built home, if you're looking at like a development of homes, is just to ask. We love it when you ask, because that tells the developers and the builders that there's demand for it, frankly, which helps there be more of them. The other way is if you come talk to us, we can give you a map that shows the different parts of town where these developments are happening, and where there are active green buildings being put up. There's the green MLS function. So Austin's MLS has what they call a green MLS, and a lot of times homes that have been rated will be listed that way in the MLS. So ask your realtor. There are certifications for realtors that understand green building too. So if you're working with a realtor, finding one that has one of those certifications. I am blanking on the name of the certification off the top of my head. Lady, you know?
Ooh.
You taught that class.
Yes, I know. I used to teach that class, and there were 2 designations, and one of them no longer exists. Hold on a second. I can look on my computer, but then I'll have to unshare my screen. We'll get back to you on that one.
Is it Eco Broker or National
That's the one that doesn't exist anymore. The other one is the one.
Okay. National Association of Realtors green designation. So if you look for a realtor that has that designation, they should be able to help you. And then, yeah, if depending on any realtor ought to be able to look in the MLS and help do a search for green homes in the MLS that way. Any other ideas on that, Lee?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, except that if you're wondering if a particular home or homes that you're looking at are rated, but it doesn't say so on the green MLS, because sometimes realtors forget to put it up there or they don't even know, you can contact us and we can find out for you.
Okay, and if we have any realtors here tonight, we're about to wrap it up, but if we do have any realtors here tonight, Mark Richmond is actually teaching that green MLS course that I was referring to at the Austin Board of Realtors next week. So highly recommend that class, and Mark does a great job with that. So a little plug for that class if you're a realtor, or if you are working with a realtor and they don't know a thing about it, tell them to go. All right, we are going to have to end it there tonight since we are out of time, and I'll send it over to Lee to wrap it up and do that final poll and survey info.
Okay, so if you're wondering about rebates and incentives, especially if you're doing a remodel or you need to replace something in your house but aren't actually even designing an addition, we have tons of information about rebates on our website: energy efficiency rebates, renewable energy rebates, solar panels, EVs, EV chargers. Go to savings.austinenergy.com. Just take a screenshot of this slide, or if you can't even remember that, just go to austinenergy.com and you'll be able to easily navigate to the different rebates.
Oh, and sorry, I'm actually not sure if Mark is teaching the Green MLS class or the NAR Green Designation course, but either one would be good for your realtor to take. So check it out at the Austin Board of Realtors.
Okay. Oh, that's, here we go. Okay, so now what we'd like for you to do is to look at the link posted in the chat after we're done and take the survey. Your surveys help us to add to our content so that we are responding to the interests of the people who want to do green building in Austin. I've added lots of things to my presentation in response to feedback over the 10 years that I've been giving it. And so now I think it's time for our poll. Oh, here we go. I see you all have already been doing it. Awesome. So what do you plan to do with the information from today's session? Let's see, 71% of you say you're going to use one or more of the green measures, and over a third of you are going to ask for more information and share about Green by Design with others. So that's awesome. So now is the time for you to look at the link posted in the chat and take our survey. And we look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock.
Thanks so much for coming, y'all, and sharing an evening with us.